Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 29th, 2020 Caribou City Council meeting. Roll call. We are all present except for Councillor Jody Smith, who has an absent approval. Number 2, invocation today. We pray for our country at all times, that all citizens are safe, healthy, and happy. We pray for the wisdom of all those who guide and govern. Help this government body in every situation to know and to do things that are right and just, with soundness of judgment in making vital decisions. We pray for the peacemakers, that the holy, life-giving Spirit may ever dwell in their hearts, and that the barriers of fear, suspicion, and hatred may fall. This we pray to the Holy Father. Amen. Amen. Number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item number 4, public forum. We are going to open up the public forum part of the council meetings to people if they wish to come. We still have the ability to entertain letters and emails addressed to either Jane or to the city manager, or I suppose to any councilors. So for tonight, do we have anybody from the public that would like to come in and speak?
No.
Okay.
I will go check my emails one last time.
Go ahead, please. Yeah. Do we have any emails? Dennis, have you received any letters or emails from the public? Okay. Thank you. We'll wait, and Jane will check one more time. When we ask the public to come in during the public comment period, they'll come through the front door, sign in, and one at a time people can come in, make their comments, and we would politely ask them to exit so somebody else could come in. We're all anxious to get this thing up and running as soon as we can. And we have no public comments. Item number 5, minutes from the June 1st, 2020 regular city council meeting. I might also note that off camera we have Chief Cahagan sitting in for Dennis, who is zooming in from somewheres. So number 5, minutes from the June 1st regular council meeting. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second that.
Moved by Joan and seconded by Doug to accept the minutes of the June 1st regular council meeting. Is there any discussion, additions, corrections, subtractions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. Item number 6, bid award appointments and recognitions. 6A, Caribou Parks and Recreation State 2020 Tourism Award. Dennis, do you have anything you'd like to comment?
I included in the council's packet a small write-up. The state recognized our Parks and Recreation Department for all the work that they do to get the ATV trail report, snowmobile trail report out. Gary, I believe, is there, and so we're close to where he could come and speak to it. But definitely a huge kudo to Caribou and everything that we do to keep the snowmobile industry alive and developed here in the state.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary, like to say a few words, please.
Well, thank you guys for allowing me to come over and talk about this. Something that's been City of Caribou's been doing now for about 35 years. It didn't start with me. I just kept the ball rolling from when Kathy got done, and we always felt that it was a very important piece to the tourism aspect of the snowmobiling industry, getting the information out prevalent and correct. With the advent of Facebook, everybody can just go on and check clubs and see what they're doing, but they still want that one-stop shop where they get all the information in one packet, and that's what the Trail Report does. And I put it out weekly, and it's still being looked at by thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and the comments on it are typically all positive. And I figured I'd submit for the award this year, and well, lo and behold, I was able to receive it. So I've known since April that I've won. Had to keep it quiet, and then this COVID thing came around, and we weren't able to do the conference. So they're going to do they're going to recognize everyone next year at the April 2021 conference in Bangor. So they've announced it. They released the video and everything. So now we're just going to do everything next year, April 21st. So thank you. Any questions?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gary, did they give you any kind of certificate or anything?
Oh, I'm going to get one when next year.
Next year you're going to wait?
Big black. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We like to get our picture in the paper with you.
Well, definitely will. Definitely will. I don't think I have much room in my office anymore for stuff. I'll have to clean my office a little bit.
Well, please pass on the kudos to the rest of the
Yes.
crew. It is a good economic driver.
This is the kudos, right? This is the crew right here. But yes, it is. It's huge. It's a huge economic tool. Yep.
Would you like to have a picture taken with him? Penny's here to take a picture.
We'll wait
We'll wait.
on this one. Thank you, though. When Dennis gets back, we're going to see if we can get a bunch of us real close together in a picture. Want to double check everything. Number 7, this is a public hearing on Ordinance 1, a charter to amend modifying the budget process timeframe. Dennis, would you like to say anything before we open it up for public hearing?
Just as a reminder, the council opened this public hearing at your last meeting. The council's had several discussions on this charter amendment, looking at modifying the budget timeframe so that currently we adopt a expense budget by the end of December of the preceding budget year, and then we look at the revenue budget in roughly March of the budget year that we begin. And so the council's had a lot of questions and concerns about trying to align those two processes together, and particularly looking at the expense budget in the actual, or after the 4 years completed, and after the year ends are done, to look at revenue projections at the same time, and also trying to pull together the capital budget and have all of those three pieces coming together at the same time, and have that looked at by March. The process, there's been some concern that we'd be starting the year effectively without an expense budget, but the amendment outlines that until the budget is approved by the council, we effectively utilize the previous year's budget, looking at the proportional amount of last year's budget until we get the final budget approved. But this does require that if the council adopts the ordinance tonight, that it would go to a vote of the citizens in November. And the citizens will be able to review that. The whole ordinance has been available from the clerk's office on the counter for review. I've received a couple of questions about it, just looking at the time frame. I understand the needs of people in the audience tonight to speak to it. But right now, the attorney for the city, Rick Spaulding, has reviewed the amendment and found that there was nothing conflict between the U.S. Constitution, the state constitution, and I think that's important.
Thank you, Dennis. Anybody from the public that would like to speak? Good evening, Gail.
I am Gail Hagelstein, and I live in Caribou. And I have some comments, and where's the city manager?
On the computer?
On Zoom. Okay. No wonder I couldn't hear him. I have gone through the proposal for the changes, and I have some concerns. And being a retired teacher, I realize sometimes a picture explains a whole lot more than a lecture. Here is my chart of the fiscal year. 12 columns, one for each month, and you will notice a bright red arrow for the first 3 months. Because in January 2nd is usually the first business day of the year. Then on or before January 15th, a draft budget report detailing the operation expenses, along with the capital expenses, are presented. Then a month later, each department head presents their expenses, and there's a public forum. March 1st, the final expense report goes to the council. The third Monday of the March, there's a public hearing, and the council votes for the current year's budget, which means Caribou operates without a budget for 3 months. I was not taking into account the fan. So questions. What is the plan to run the city without a budget for 3 months? Is there a plan? Because if there isn't, I don't think it's ready to go to referendum. These changes mean almost a quarter of the year, 3 months, with no specific financial plan because there is no approved budget. What value does this change bring to the city to go into the fiscal year without a budget? My opinion, it is fiscally irresponsible to make these changes to the charter. For example, expenses happen January 1st, January 2nd, there is no budget. How are bills going to be paid? Will salaries be paid? What about late cuts late in the process of the budget hearing or the budget process? How will these be handled? What's the value of changing it now? I have an idea. If you want to change the charter because you're concerned about the lapse between the time of expenses and the income data, change the fiscal year. Change the fiscal year so that it's in line with the county, the school district, I believe the state, and that way you'll have all your data all at the same time, and something along this line is more applicable. And yes, I do know firsthand about cities that had to give out 2 tax bills in 1 year. And the gnashing of teeth and the stomping of feet and the moaning and groaning and whining, complaining disappeared after the first year, when they realized this wasn't going to continue. This really was more effective, and you didn't have to pay your taxes just before Christmas. You did it before you went on vacation, which is a whole lot easier to swallow. So the proposed fiscal budget changes to the charter, unless you can answer more questions and you can explain to the taxpayers why this adds value, please don't do it. Thank you. Oh, and Gary, congratulations. Wonderful news, well deserved.
Thank you, Gail.
Yep.
There's nobody else? Oh, I would have answered some of Gail's questions with her in the room. One of the questions was, how do you pay your bills? And I think Dennis answered it at the beginning of the item when we brought it up, was we work under last year's budget.
Are you answering questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on back in if you have time. Well, I thought there was more people going to talk.
Spoken with. I thought it was just, oh, okay, thank you for your input. Now goodbye.
One of the questions, I have no idea, Gail.
You can sanitize it. There you go.
It is now.
One of the questions that you had was that how are we going to pay our bills? And Dennis, at the beginning of it, and how it was done prior to the change that we currently work on, was that you work under last year's budget. So you do have the money to pay the electric bill and the necessities that come through on a monthly basis.
So you're working with the actual numbers from the previous year rather than the hopefully budgeted numbers from the current year?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm not really quite, you might have to, we'll double check on that one. We used last year's numbers. I assumed we were using last year's budgeted numbers. But I'll get back to you on that, whether we use the budgeted numbers or last year's actual numbers.
Okay.
So I'll have to get back on that one. One of the other questions you asked, what's the value of moving this? And the whole purpose, and one of the major problems that I have found is that the variables in December 31st to make an expense budget are so wide and so varied that an extra 4 months, extra 3 months, more things come into a line, such as the state budget, the county budget, the
School.
even the school budget you get little inklings in March, and things are a little more, the variables are less on the decision-making process of expenses. And we want to be one of 7. And I want to be able to look at the income budget with the expense budget, which we currently don't do.
So why not just change the whole fiscal year?
Well, that would most likely require a charter commission. We just had a charter commission, and they went through it, and for some reason, they decided not to change it. They decided to do it this way, by moving it to December 15th. And so this was an easy fix, we thought, and it could be done relatively quickly to bring everything into line.
Okay. And I understand wanting as much information. Look at what I did for decades. You want as much correct information. I just don't think that if the charter says the 31st, you go into a new fiscal year 3 months in debt. So thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it. And we'll have to agree to disagree.
Okay,
Okay?
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
We do that sometimes, don't we? And this pen is clean.
Thank you. So now I'll close the public hearing 6:20 on June 29th on this subject. Any comments or questions from the council? You.
I would just say that, based on the chart she put together, that 3 months is a downside, but it's a trade-off, right? We're trading, moving the schedule for having more information. And one of the trade-offs is those 3 months where you have to kind of look backwards for what you spent in that same time period the year before. So there really is no perfect time to do it or way to do it. This just gets you closer to getting the most information that you in theory want to put that together. So
One question Gail didn't bring, but another thing I find intriguing about doing it this way is it's a new city council sitting down that's acting on that year's budget, so that an expense budget is not set by a council whose members might not be on the following year's board. So most of us have had to wait 1 year before we could dig into the expense budget, because it was set the previous year before we were elected. So that was another little bonus, but, so. Any other comments or questions? Tony? Joe? Doug? Okay, thank you very much. Item 8, new business. Discussion and possible action regarding rubbish hauler permit for Jack Hebert, DBA McNeil's Trucking.
motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Hugh, seconded by Tommy, to renew the rubbish hauler's permit for McNeil's Trucking. Any additions, corrections, subtractions, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. 8B, discussion possible action regarding liquor license renewal for the Bar and Grill at 6 Carroll Street.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Tommy, seconded by Joan, to renew the liquor license for Bar and Grill at 6 Carroll Street. Any comments, questions? Here, Doug.
I just want to congratulate him on his move. I got a chance to go in the facility while it's under the remake, and it is going to be a beautiful place. What a nice addition to an old building that is going to be. And I congratulate him and want him to know, as one counselor, how appreciative I am that he chose to grow in Caribou and stay here. Thank you.
Any idea when it was going to open?
He might have mentioned, I don't recall it right off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
August, I think.
End of July.
End of July.
First of August, end of July, that's what I heard.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful place.
All those in favor? Motion carries, unanimous. Thank you. Renewal of liquor license renewal for Country Farms Market at 31 Herschel Street.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Tom, seconded by Doug. Any comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, 8C, sale of tax acquired property, map 15, lot 69A. The prior owner has paid full taxes owed. Dennis, do you have any comments on this one?
This is one of the properties that we put out to public bid. Nobody bid on it, and the prior owner has come back in with his own bid, if you will, to pay all the past due taxes and fees. And I'd like the council to accept that bid so that he can get his property back from the state.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the bid.
Second.
Second that?
Moved by you, seconded by Tom, to accept taxes paid in full on map 15, lot 69A. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 9A, discussion and possible action regarding Ordinance 1, a charter amendment modifying the budget process timeframes. Any discussion? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to put it on the ballot for November?
Second?
Moved by you, seconded by Joan, to place Ordinance 1 on the ballot for the voters' approval or disapproval. Any more questions, comments? One last time, going around the horn. You. Go- Yes.
Just would remind the council of the recommendation by our legal counsel to do one more modification of the ordinance. Right now, there's one place where it refers to a revision, and we need to change that to an amendment.
Yes. An amendment it is. Can the motion reflect that? That the change, there was a place where it did say revisions, to change that to an amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Discussion and 9B, discussion and possible action regarding a 2020 mill rate. Dennis.
Councilors, we know that in the charter it indicates that the council is supposed to adopt a new paper by June 30th. We had a successor reached out to the municipal authority and asked, in the unique circumstances we find ourselves in the pandemic and the school district not having their final budget in place, how do we really make that work? And the response that we received was the charter anticipates that the school district, the county, and the city will all have their budgets ready to go and to be able to be incorporated in the calculation before June 30th. It's a reasonable thing to put all of that is in place. But because the school district is still waiting to finalize their budget on July 14th, MMA's opinion was that, again, given the unique circumstances of the issue, that date in the charter will not be applicable. So as well, after we have the final school budget, have the council take action on it. So that's one part of the discussion we wanted to have tonight as far as the time frame proceeding. The other part is that one of the biggest factors in the mill rate is the city issue. And the process to go through to do that. And I believe Assessor Penny Thompson is available, able to answer questions and kind of walk the council through her findings for this year and some of the significant changes that we've had to deal with again to legislation and also facts going through and by additional businesses or ways to help the businesses, and results of that have brought to us as far as the valuation. I think Penny can walk you through that and you can ask her questions going forward.
So what we're going to, oh, here we are. Hi.
Hi.
Did you have anything that you would like to comment on?
I didn't know if you had questions, if you wanted me to read my memo, whatever. I'm here for whatever.
Any questions for Penny?
I'd like to hear her memo.
Okay.
Okay. This is a long one, so everyone get a snack. Use the bathroom if you need to. So the adoption of the annual tax rate. The Caribou City Charter, Section 5.06E, requires the City Council to set the rate of taxation for the city based on the approved budgets of the city, county, and RSU 39 on or before the 30th of June each year. However, I contacted MMA Legal about the deadline for tax commitment in the charter relative to the vote on the RSU budget and was given this response. So this part was from MMA, and I cut it directly from the email. Section 5.06E of the Caribou City Charter does indeed state the City Council will set the rate of taxation for the city based on the approved budgets of the city, county, and RSU 39 on or before the 30th of June each year. By its very terms, however, this council duty is dependent on the budgets for the city, county, and RSU 39 being approved on or before June 30th. If any one of these budgets is not approved for whatever reason by that date, it would literally be impossible to set the tax rate because the total required tax commitment would be both unknown and unknowable without an approved budget for all three entities, the city, the county, and RSU 39. Due to the unique and unprecedented circumstances created by the COVID-19 pandemic and the state's requirements and restrictions in response, the RSU's budget this year will not be approved until at least July 14th. Because the RSU's budget will not be approved on or before June 30th, 2020, in my opinion, and my means MMA Legal, the Charter's requirement that the tax rate be set by the council on or before that date does not apply in this instance. The next section of my memo, which is in the packet if anybody wants to see it, is about the approved budget review, and it gives the RSU 39 and Aroostook County budgets for both 19 and 20 and what the change is, and of course they both went up. The RSU, I think a lot of people are confused because in the Aroostook Republican, it said that the school budget wasn't increasing. That is also technically true. Their year is different from our year, so each year we have to take 6 months from the previous budget, 6 months from the current budget, and that's what we have to raise. So last year, what they gave to us for a bill for their school year was actually just $3 less than this year. But because we had a lower year with that year, what we actually raised last year was $93,807, less than what we would have to raise this year with two of those bigger budgets. So as far as the valuation update, the Tax Assessment Department has finished establishing valuation numbers for the 2020 tax year. As a reminder, the state of Maine remains in a civil state of emergency, and Governor Mills has extended the deadline to file for exemptions. That deadline is set as 30 days after the end of the state of emergency or the municipality's commitment date, whichever is first. Therefore, all exemptions received until that time are considered timely filed and will be processed as such. So for example, last Wednesday I got another homestead exemption. It was considered timely filed. In other years, I would have denied that exemption because it needed to be here by April 1st. But because the governor has relaxed these deadlines, the person would still have to qualify as of April 1st. So the deadline is not extended to qualify. It is only extended to file. Today, Tony had 2 different people come in and ask for veteran exemption paperwork and wanted to know if they would be applied for this year. So these things are still happening. It also, with business equipment tax exemption forms. If someone files one of those now, maybe on equipment that we were going to tax, we have to accept those too. It's just, we don't have any discretion in that because the governor has extended those deadlines. So I do have a chart in the memo about taxable real estate valuation, taxable personal property valuation, and the total taxable valuation, which for the 2020 tax year compared to the 2019 tax year is down $10,776,500. And most of this is due to the change in the homestead exemption. When you take away $10 million of value from your tax base, even though 70% of that is reimbursed and that does figure into a mill rate calculation, it is hard to even make up that other 30%. Caribou has a lot of homestead exemptions. This year, I think I have the number in here somewhere, but it was well over 2,000. So we will, you can see that there is an increase also in the homestead reimbursement value over last year because the value of the homestead exemption is more and the reimbursement is more. So we have that change, the negative change in valuation as $10,706,500. There is also the homestead reimbursement value went up between 19 and 20 by $10,709,000. So there is some change there. There's also change with business personal property. And I explained that more in the memo, but you can see there's also a corresponding change, not as much as the dollar to dollar, but our enhanced Betty reimbursement value between 2019 and 2020 did go up $1,780,400. Some of this is also because the more Betty exempt value that you have relative to your overall valuation, you can get more than the statutory 50% reimbursement. So as we pick up more Betty valuation and our other taxable valuation goes down, that percentage gets higher. And so we can pick up some extra value there. The Tree Growth Current Use Program, Title 36 MRSA Section 576 requires that the state tax assessor establish 100% valuation per acre for each forest type by economic region for parcels classified under the tree growth tax law for the tax year 2020. The 2020 tree growth tax law valuation schedule was published by Maine Revenue on June 3rd, 2020. The rates for Aroostook County were reduced for softwood and increased slightly for mixed wood and hardwood. In 2020, the City of Caribou has 26 parcels in the tree growth tax law program with a total of 1,484 acres. All of these changes overall, with two of them going up and one going down, actually we only ended up with a net change of $100. Homestead tax exemption, as expected, there is over $10 million reduction in taxable real estate valuation due to the state of Maine's increase of the homestead tax exemption full value to $25,000, and there is a corresponding increase in the homestead reimbursement value. In 2019, the full value of the exemption was $20,000 with a 62.5% reimbursement. Each year, homestead exemptions are removed, added, and sometimes transferred to other residences. All exemption applications must be reviewed, approved, and changes entered by staff. We currently have 12 more exemptions than we did in 2019. Some of this is because I was very concerned about people coming in at the last minute, so I actually sent 2 different mailings out to people that I thought might qualify for homesteads to try to get them on board before I ran my preliminary numbers. Renewable energy exemption, a new exemption for 2020, which converted previously taxable value to exempt value, was the renewable energy equipment exemption. The City of Caribou has 3 solar installations which qualify for this exemption in 2020. The value of these assets is over $1.4 million, and the city will receive the statutory 50% reimbursement from the revenue lost by administering this exemption. The value in the exemption will be listed in the personal property commitment book. So general real estate valuation changes. Each year there is an amount of depreciation applied to mobile homes. This year that resulted in a loss of over $60,000 in taxable real estate value. During the year there is property that is acquired by the city through the automatic lien foreclosure process. This year the most significant loss in taxable value with this process was Merlin 1 LLC, steam and diesel plant property. Also within each tax year, parcels are conveyed from city title to the former owners or a successful bidder, which adds value. The recent sale of 12 tax-acquired properties will increase valuation next year, but not in 2020. Within the tax year, value is lost through fires, demolition permits, and other types of functional obsolescence. As I've stated in years past, Caribou has an older housing stock that is owned by folks with limited incomes who cannot always afford the repairs needed. Additionally, the harsh northern Maine climate contributes to value loss as structures collapse under the weight of ice and snow. This year, the City Council formed a committee to identify blighted properties and the tools to combat this urban decay. Significant taxable real estate value is lost annually due to these blighted properties. When the department finds an error in property valuation, it must be corrected. This happens during routine inspections or as a result of a conversation with a homeowner, insurance agent, or even real estate appraisers. In the 2020 tax year, many errors were corrected as they relate to the number of dwelling units in a building. The department undertook several valuation projects, and one was to identify properties with at least 2 dwelling units and request information on the situation of those properties as of April 1, 2020. Any units that were rented are considered an income-producing enterprise, and the business personal property was discovered, listed, and valued. Some properties that were identified as having additional dwelling units no longer had units, and those dwelling units were removed and the account updated. Some properties had more units than we had on file. Each update received was corrected for 2020. The primary increase in value comes from the department discovering and listing new value. Typically, this comes from following up on building permits. If a structure is not complete on April 1, the owner is assessed for the percent complete and staff returns the next year. Staff also looks for value on improvements built without a permit. Other value comes from splits of property. The first base acre of a parcel is assessed at the highest per acre rate, so when a lot is split, it increases the tax base. The city continues to see investment in the community in the form of new homes and commercial buildings. There was loss in the TIF districts with the Homestead Exemption increase. The amount of captured value is based on the overall taxable value, so an increase in the exemption amount equates to a decrease in the increment. In 2020, there was significant new value in the downtown TIF district with the addition of the new Duncan building, and in the RC2 TIF district with the Irving Farms potato storage and office. Overall, the amount of new growth in the community for 2020 was over $3 million. So my general business personal property valuation changes. There were several valuation projects that were undertaken in the department affecting taxable personal property valuation. The previously mentioned apartment undertaking was one. As a result of that project, 139 new accounts were created, with most accounts having some or all value listed in the Betty program, and it also generated over $180,000 in new taxable value. Before the 36 MRSA Section 706 notices were mailed, staff manually coded each Betty is a business equipment tax exemption program. And sometimes I end up saying that and people think that there's someone named Betty that pays everyone's taxes, but not true. It's the Business Equipment Tax Exemption Program, which has been in place since 2008, and it's had many different changes over the years, which has affected the types of businesses and equipment that qualify. So we manually coded each eligible piece of equipment and eligible businesses so that a business equipment tax exemption application would be automatically generated to be mailed with the notice. This was done because after the changes to the Betty program in 2018, many taxpayers were eligible for Betty and therefore not eligible for the Better, which is the Business Equipment Tax Reimbursement Program, but did not apply for Betty and therefore were denied for Better. With Maine Revenue Service, if you qualify for the exemption program, they will not let you say, oh, geez, I could have had a V8. I would have remembered my equipment qualified for the exemption program. I'll just fill it in for the reimbursement program, and they won't let you do that. You have one chance to get your equipment right. And so we're trying to help people by making sure that they're getting it right. Staff knows that our business community needs assistance with understanding these changes and therefore undertook the taxpayer education outreach. Business owners were appreciative of the effort. I actually had one business manager who has a business in town in several locations throughout the state and was confused when he got his form and there was the exemption form, and he called and he had questions and he says, geez, I have the same equipment in 5 other towns. No other town has done this for me. And I said, well, you need to call them. Don't send your stuff to them until you call them and get a form. You can get the forms on Maine Revenue's website. So we really have tried to help our businesses by doing more outreach. Another business personal property project was to discover, list, and value each business in Caribou, including some who previously failed to respond to requests. This year, all businesses found in Caribou were contacted. The few who did not report were given an estimated value based on the assessed value of similar businesses. According to state law, those businesses who did not respond to our 706 request are barred from seeking abatement. Despite all of our efforts to find value, the amount of taxable business personal property value in Caribou has decreased. This is due to a variety of reasons. Equipment that is now eligible for the Business Equipment Tax Exemption Program, depreciation on equipment, older equipment that has been taken out of service and replaced with new equipment that is eligible for the exemption program, and obsolete equipment that was disposed of and not replaced, and also closed businesses. As always, please let me know if you have any questions about real estate or business personal property valuation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. Very
You're welcome.
nice.
Do you have any other questions?
Any counselors have any questions? I've got a couple.
Okay, great.
Under the tree growth program versus a regular, I didn't sign up for tree growth program, I'm just going to pay the taxes that you put on that acre of softwood.
Right.
Is there a difference?
Yes, of course, there's a difference. So I didn't bring the valuation sheet down with me, but
Ballpark figure?
so, I hate ballparking.
Oh,
You can
okay.
ask anybody I work with.
I
I don't like to
apologize.
ballpark anything. So we'll just say, for the purposes of me not bringing this down, that so say softwood is $100 an acre, mixed wood is $125, and hardwood is $150 an acre. Well, you compare that to, so a base acre in town is like $10,000. The next 5 acres are $1,750. The next 25 are $750, and that's the number that we report to the state is what we call rear land 2. So it would be whatever acres that someone had, the 25 acres after the first 6. So the difference between $750 and even the $150, that is a big savings. Of course, the downside to current use programs is if you do withdraw a portion of that, you do have to pay a penalty, and it's based on the full market value of the property today. And the penalty is actually like 30% of that. So it's more than even what you've paid over the last, 5 years. We actually have to do it two ways because we have to make sure that your penalty is not less than you would have paid in the last 5 years. We actually, this year, the first time, I've worked here for 10 years, and this was the first year that we actually assessed a tree growth penalty. So we did collect a tree growth penalty this year. It was like an acre or something that was withdrawn.
If you're a owner of a small woodlot and you sign up for tree growth, you're still allowed to, however, harvest some of that wood and still remain in the program if you follow the forester's
Right, a forest management plan. Yeah. Anything that's put into tree growth needs to have a forest management plan. It's not something that belongs to the owner. We don't keep copies of that here. What we do keep is a copy of the map. I'm not a forester. I don't have the foggiest idea about even
USDA National
Yeah.
Conservation.
Yeah, but I mean, as an assessor,
SES.
I wouldn't be able to go out and say, yes, this person is in line with what their forest management plan is. And then every 10 years, they need to have a new plan. If the property's transferred, I have to get documentation. And that happened this year, too, that someone transferred, and we have to contact them to see if they're using the old plan, getting a new plan.
I would just make sure that if people come in and say, look, I want to harvest, you push them over to Presque Isle and RCS. That way they know where to go.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of that, I would think.
Yeah, we do. So with forest management, we have forms in the office. We have a lot of foresters that stop by to get the forms. Sometimes they come and get them, even if they're harvesting in Connor or Caswell. Just because we're here, we're open. We got smiles on our faces. We've got the paperwork. And if someone is harvesting in Caribou, we actually do get a forestry notification from the state that says, we've received this paperwork that someone's doing a harvest in this area. We take those very seriously for a couple different reasons. Number one is the property and tree growth. So it just is kind of a trigger. Number two, it's a noise thing. So if I kind of keep in my mind, okay, we have harvests going on in this area, when we get people that are calling with feedback about the noise that they're hearing at 2 a.m, because a lot of the larger foresters, their operation goes 24 hours a day because they can't make it pay if they're not going 24 hours a day. But yes, most generally, forest land is not in the urban compact zone, but we actually do, when you're going south of town, there is actually some forested land in the urban compact zone. And a few years ago, I actually had to go out to measure the sound of the forestry harvest to see if it hit a certain decibel limit, and had to call the landowner to say, hey, you're going to have to talk to them because we have quiet hours. This is in our ordinance between 10 and 6. We can't have commercial activities going along that reach this decibel unit. I did get a call from the forester who informed me that he can't make it pay unless he goes 24 hours a day. And eventually he was done with his harvest, and we didn't hear anything more, but those things do happen.
Just real quick, you said something that intrigued me. Quiet hours? What
Yes.
ordinance is this?
Well, that's in Chapter 13.
Chapter 13? Is it?
I
now?
can't tell you the section, but you can,
So basically,
in the urban
any-
compact zone, though.
in the urban compact zone. So anything outside of the urban compact zone, that doesn't fall?
Nope. One of my neighbors did a harvest last winter, and I could hear the equipment. And he's quite a ways, actually, from where I live, but we're along the river. And the river and the cold air will bring that sound right up, and I could hear all that equipment start, and just put another pillow over my head and keep sleeping.
So anything outside of the urban compact
Yeah.
zone doesn't have quiet hours?
I mean, we couldn't do that. A lot of our economy is based on farming. It's based on what happens in the woods. If we started telling people that they couldn't start up their operations when the sun comes up, I mean, we can't do that. I mean, look, our growth in town is through our farming community. I mean, that's our base here. So we couldn't do that outside the urban compact zone. But people who live in town feel like they have a certain expectation that they can sleep in a little later.
I find if you're in rural Caribou, the tree growth program is not a bad program. And it's not as burdensome as the paperwork would lead you to believe. I would encourage people who have small forest acres to think about this program.
Yeah, it's a reward for people who are doing it anyway.
Correct.
Most of the people that come in to sign up for tree growth, I have found in my experience, already have been working with a forester. They already have a forest management plan. They just have decided, you know what, I'm never going to develop this property. I should just go ahead and put it in tree growth.
Correct.
Yeah.
Under Homestead Exemption,
Yes.
in 2019, with the Homestead Exemption at $20,000, we were reimbursed 62.5%. In 2020, the Homestead Exemption is going to go to $25,000, but you're expecting to be reimbursed 70%.
Correct. That was a tax law change in not this session, but the last session, when it went incrementally. It was 10, and then it went to 15, then 20, then 25, and we had different reimbursement rates. They had, I don't know if you remember, but back in 2017, we didn't commit in June either because they had the government shutdown. And Maine Municipal was telling us not to commit at that time because they were concerned about the reimbursement rates changing. It had been scheduled to change to 62.5%. It stayed at 50 with their budget wrangling down there.
Okay. And my last question will be, or comment was, I was the recipient of a staff member coming out to my farm asking me to sign a piece of paper.
Yeah, that would have been for your business equipment tax exemption form, yeah.
And I was very appreciative of the fact that you took time to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, as you've heard back, other people are appreciative too. I just want to say thanks.
I will
publicly.
let Tony know. I think Tony was the one that went out to your farm and
Tony
found you in the
was.
strawberry patch. And
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did a lot of that. We have a lot of Betty exemptions this year that have like greasy thumbprints and like a little bit of dirt, because we actually went with the clipboard and says, hey, we'll save you some money. Sign here.
Nobody's going to get hurt with a little bit of grease
No, it's just,
and a little bit of dirt.
it's just funny when I'm going through them because, you know, as the head of the department, I go through and make sure that we don't have any equipment on there that's not eligible and not in an eligible business. We don't, because what happens is we submit this to, so the state comes in to do our state valuation audit. They check every single line of every single exemption form, because the state is giving us money back. So they want to make sure that we are not pushing things in there that don't qualify, the business doesn't qualify, that we're not properly depreciating different assets. So we're not saying, okay, this piece of equipment that's in an eligible business, we're not going to depreciate that. We're going to put it on our Betty form at, say, $50,000, but say another person who has the exact same piece of equipment that is in not an eligible business, we're depreciating it. So they check all of our work with that. Those things have happened in other towns, not here. So with that clawback, to make sure that we don't have a lot of abatements, that's something I do go over that. So we aren't committing something that we shouldn't.
Okay. Joe?
I got a quick question I thought
Yeah.
of. The solar fields, the solar
Yes.
arrays. Is the city of Caribou receiving property tax payments on those?
So we are not receiving a property tax payment, But we are receiving reimbursement for 50% of the lost value of implementing the exemption. Yes, I know. So in the last legislative session, the renewable energy lobby, they've been trying this for several years to lobby the legislature to make these renewable energy, wind and solar. We don't happen to have wind in Caribou, but they're also exempt now. So their lobby won. This exemption was created. This is the first year that it's going to be implemented. So in 2017, we had a taxpayer that put up a solar array, and he was taxed for that because at that time that was taxable value. Unless he was using it on site, and it wasn't going out to the grid, it was taxed. So for 17, 18, and 19, that was actually part of our personal property commitment. He paid tax on that solar farm. With the advent of this exemption, I reached out to him and the other 2 solar companies in town when we got the forms. We got the forms in late March. I gave those to them. I actually gave them to another taxpayer in town whose solar installation is not in Caribou, it's in another community. But I sent it to him as well because the dollars he saves in Connor, he can pay his taxes in Caribou, is how I look at it. And so the owner of that fills out a form that Maine Revenue created. Their instructions to us as assessors is that we assess it using the income approach, using discounted cash flow analysis, and then it's in the personal property commitment book. Because anything that we're getting reimbursement on, like all these homestead exemptions, veteran exemptions, Betty exemptions, when you look at our commitment book, you see all that in there, and that's an important component with Maine Revenue when they're doing our audits, is to make sure that anything that they're reimbursing can be found in that commitment book. And so these solar installations, using the information they provided, I did the values on those. I actually sent them to Maine Revenue to look over, because again, I don't want to have anything as part of our tax base that later they're going to say, I don't like the way you did that. Even though we've really literally had no guidance, because this is a new thing, and because there's so few communities that's had to do this before. I value these 2 new ones the same way I did the first one, because Maine Revenue found that acceptable. And so even though we have $1.4 million in value with these solar projects, Caribou will only get the exemption value for $700,000 because it's a 50% reimbursement. And so that isn't something that's on the mill rate calculation sheet, because there's not enough communities that have that. So that is something that will show up under, like on the tax rate calculation sheet under other revenues. So Carl has created a revenue line. So each year it will have an estimate at the beginning of the year, but it'll have to be changed with the commitments and when we know the actual tax rate.
Okay, so a person has a 25-acre plot of ground,
Yep.
and they're paying X amount of dollars on that
Yep.
ground. Usually these solar farms are they lease the land.
Yep.
Okay, so that person would still pay that same amount of money.
Correct.
On that 25.
Correct, yeah.
And then whatever extra we get for the actual solar,
Correct. Yeah.
does that go up? Okay.
Yeah, we don't tax leases in Caribou. It's kind of hard to find out the value of leases and things like that. So that
The owner
isn't
still
something that we've
pays.
done before, and the owner is paying the property taxes on there.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, or?
I actually think I understand it.
Well, good. A lot of these things are so, we just never know what they're going to hand down from Augusta, but we're professionals and we roll with it, and we come up with the best way we
So
can.
we're still getting the tax money on the piece of ground that
Yes.
we haven't lost, and we're getting tax money on that
Yes, yeah.
700,000, whatever.
I mean, of course, the state waits like a year to pay you this
Right.
stuff. It's like Homestead, we get like half, and then we have to wait another year to get the other half, and things like that. But eventually we get it.
It's additional, yeah,
Yeah, it's something.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
So unlike the business equipment tax exemption program, which the business owner has to apply for that every year, with this new solar program, they're only going to apply the one time, and then I, as the assessor, have to follow up to make sure it's still there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Doug?
Penny, I
Yes.
probably asked you this before, probably 100 times.
Okay.
I'm going to ask again. And
Okay.
our property valuations, are we adjusting annually, every 2 years? How are we tracking so that we wouldn't end up with what I call the debacle that we had for 2011 and the reval and the outlay of cash? Are we able to adjust annually? Or
We
every
have
2
not-
years, or?
Right. We haven't been adjusting our property values. There have been some cases where I've gone in and just tweaked different land schedules after the revaluation because the sales that were coming in weren't supportive of that. One of the things that I have been advocating for years is to have the time to be able to do like a system of quarterly review. So you're taking a quarter of the properties in town every year and just making sure you haven't missed an evaluation. Maybe somebody has finished a basement. Maybe someone's put a shed up, didn't get a permit, and I didn't happen to notice it, that type of thing. And it seems that I just keep getting more jobs to do, you know, but this year it really started. So this year I talked with the Board of Assessors who, you know, they oversee what I do also in the office, and also with Mr. Marker. And Mr. Marker is also very supportive of doing these property reviews because I don't want to have to pay an outside firm. Now, no disrespect to outside firms when I say the following statement. That's my disclaimer. My statement is this: you can't pay people to care. And one of the problems that I find, and one of the problems I'm actually still finding in 2020, are errors that literally, I think, this is so basic. And if you are the person who's actually meeting with taxpayers, if you are the person who's going out to measure a home, if you're a person who's walking around with a taxpayer saying, no, okay, this is what I'm seeing with your property, is this a fair assessment of what's going on here with regard to the grade of the structure, the condition of the structure, the measurements, whatever, then you can be on the same page. And so if you send a letter to that person and you say, okay, I've adjusted your valuation, this is your numbers, and they say, whoa, we need to have a conversation, that person is sitting with me who was that person. And I'm here. I'm not here for 3 weeks to do,
So the
reviews.
The valuation, we're at 100%. Mm-hmm. So am I correct in stating that it's 100% of what I would call the open market?
Correct.
So if the open market, let's just pretend on my mortgage heaven up there, if that, say, goes down a percent, I'm just trying, is there a way we can form a spreadsheet that would make it easier for you, or maybe buy or have the council look at having one made where all this input would be on that sheet and you could go to the top of a column, and if the market has moved up a percent, that you could just...
We have that now because we have cost schedules that are built into our CAMA system, which is a computer-assisted mass appraisal system. A lot of the classes that I go to are on mass appraisal, so that we could do our own in-house sales study. Now in Caribou, what we have, the majority of are single-family residences. So that's the part of the market that we have the most sales data. Of course, it takes a lot of time to be able to drill down on, okay, what was really going on in this sale? Right. Was this an arm's length transaction? was there some kind of undue influence when you see outliers? And so that's why when you're doing a sales ratio study that comes up with, okay, what is our certified ratio, which, like we said, is 100%. But even at 100%, I mean, you might be 95 to 105. Like you're going to have a spread. If we're within 10%, we think we're doing pretty good. But you also, just being within the market, like an idea of what the market would be, we also have to look at other factors within the market. You know, are our values progressive? Are they regressive? Are our higher priced properties actually taxed at a rate less than 100%, while our lower priced properties are really taxed at over 100%? So that would be regressive. And I find a lot of that in our Caribou market. But until, you can really sit down and say, okay, I'm going to take all these sales, and I keep our sales in a spreadsheet and look at those. But it's with the technology that we have, and this was something back when we had the new values committed in 2012. One of the reasons it was done at that time is part of that contract was to input everything into Trio, which is our CAMA system, so that it would be easier to do a sales study and then change your cost schedules. So there is the technology is there. Like I said, I have spent a lot of time in classes learning this, talking to other people. Okay, in a town our size, what should I be looking for different things to look at in these sales to be able to, that would carry the weight? How do I look at our sales data and interpret that to be able to do my own in-house project? So with this year, it's starting with our non-residential properties. So when I took on this apartment project, which was one of my little pet projects for the year, I sent people a letter. Actually, I think Mayor Gahn got one, because I have his down as a 2-family, correct, his house. So when he got his letter, it says, this is your address. I have that you have 2 dwelling units. Do you have 2 dwelling units? Do you have more than 2 dwelling units? Is your dwelling unit an in-law apartment, or do you rent it out? And it starts with that. So during that process, I was able to correct a lot of things with that. So like when you're talking about, are we going around, are we doing corrections? It's starting with that. After we get the tax bills out, I'm planning to do a similar project with commercial property and taking a look at, okay, what do we have for our business property? Do we have it coded correctly? So one of the things I ran into, like, was 60 Access Highway. We were pricing that like it was still a manufacturing facility. It wasn't really a manufacturing facility anymore. It didn't have the infrastructure in place to be a manufacturing facility anymore. It was really storage. It was a storage warehouse that had an office component. Yeah. So you have to have good data to be able to come up with good valuation, because when you get a sale and it doesn't make any sense, you have to go back to the property record card and say, is there something wrong with my data that this is so far off of what we have for valuation? But all of that takes time.
We're on the same page, being one, it's fair to both the city and the taxpayers. Right. 2, that we're not hiring somebody, no offense, to come here and do, people would arguably say a half-assed job, pardon my French, but yeah, that's just the 2 things for me to ask that question was, 1, to stem the bullet of the cost, and 2, to make sure that I can recall my thoughts were, there's got to be a better mousetrap to be done here local.
Yes.
Than having somebody from Boston or somewhere come that does not understand.
Well, and for them, I mean, they're a business. They're about making money. For me, it's about doing a good job for the city, for the taxpayers, to be accountable so that, they're going to find me. I mean, this is a small town. They know what kind of car I drive. They know where I live. So if they're not happy,
you're going to hear about it.
I'm going to hear about it. I'm going to hear about it in the grocery store. I'm going to hear about it at church. Like, it's going to happen. And that's okay. Because one of the things when I go to a lot of these classes and I hear other people talk about the challenges they have in their jurisdictions, I'm always happy to have my problem. So if my biggest problem is that I can't go to the grocery store without somebody saying, "Are taxes going up this year?" Like literally, like every time. And I hear that homestead's going up. Do I have an exemption? Call me at the office, because I don't know, like when I'm standing in the middle of the grocery store, if you have one.
Blame the mayor.
If that's my biggest problem that I have, or if my problem is that maybe I have too many taxpayers that want to come and talk to me, that's a good problem.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have jurisdictions that have, a lot bigger problems than that. At least our citizenry in Caribou are always very appreciative when you take the time to go over their valuation with them, to help them understand.
Sure.
And my life has only been threatened one time. That was during the revow. And it doesn't matter because I keep a Mockler Funeral Home calendar right by my phone, so they know who to call.
Please call if you can't wait.
If she's a goner,
Thank you.
call the funeral home. Yeah. What's that?
So morbid.
Hey, I want to go to the right place.
Fair enough.
Any other questions for Penny?
Thank you, Penny.
Yes, you're welcome anytime.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You know where to find me if you have more questions.
Report. Are we done with discussion? We're going to wait until next council meeting for the mill rate setting, correct, Dennis?
That's what we anticipated, unless you want to have a special meeting as soon as we can after the July 14th election.
Okay.
To use the council.
Okay, we can discuss that down the road. Thank you. Number 10, reports of discussion by mayor and council members. 10A is a letter to the governor regarding the reopening of Maine. This was something I asked to have placed on the agenda last council meeting. I stated then, and I still continue to state, that the sooner that we can get the state up and running, the better we can. Other comments remain. Joan brought up a good one. The governor, since our last meeting, has revisited some of the opening dates, but then I guess, again, just recently has decided to backtrack just a little bit because of some outbreaks, and so it's kind of a confusing time frame right now. I was just interested in getting into the ear of the governor just to say that we as a small community in northern Maine that we've had very few cases. We can watch it closely. That from our point of view, it would be nice to get things up and running. And like any other subject over the last 2 weeks, my opinion has gone both ways, one way or the other. Nicole, you weren't here at the last Caribou City Council meeting, and before we went any further, I wanted to both let you and Jody have a chance to comment on it. I don't mean to put you on the spot. What do you think?
So I understand the impact on both. I think we've done a good job, if we continue to enforce some of the regulations that have been put in place, but I do know that our small businesses cannot continue to have the impact of not being able to operate. I know some businesses have started to open back up, and they do have requirements in place, and I think that is going well. I'm not exactly sure what your letter was going to include, but I think no matter what we decide to do, that things just need to be done safely and smartly so that we don't put ourselves in a situation of a pandemic. But I think that absolutely our economy cannot continue to suffer from this. So.
And I wanted to clarify where I'm coming from. I just envisioned that the mayor, that the governor has many people that have inner ears. Some want this, some want the opposite, some want that, some want the opposite. And this letter was just meant to be a letter, very politely, very appreciative of all the hard work that's been going into it, But we as a small community, we wanted to say in the year that's saying open up as soon as you can, we support that. So as the week went on since I brought this up, I've had 2 or 3 good comments about it from people coming up to me and saying it's about time we get up and running in the state and do the best we can, learn to live with it. And one person says to me, hey, what's the rec department doing? Why are you interested in opening up the state? Shouldn't we open up our own community first? And luckily in the audience, we have the head of our rec department. Gary, not to put you on the spot, but every day I hear you're doing something. I'm finding out in the news that you're doing something different for kids' activities. And this is something we got to get clear that make sure that people know exactly when the changes occur and what the rules are.
Yep.
Could you just give us a brief update on what the Caribou Parks and Rec Department is doing and what you might plan to do for summer activities for the students of RSU 39?
Our programs are up and running. We're pretty much targeted the same dates as we've always had in the past. Our which used to be our CRX program is called now Caribou Rec Outdoor Camp. That started the week prior to June 22nd. Mr. Sleeper, the gentleman that runs that program, had to really think outside the box with this program because there's a lot of different trips that he takes with the kids, knowing that we can't physically be within 6 feet in a van. So we had to change it up a little bit. He really thought outside the box with this program. He learned that the water is a lot lower than it usually is, and he's paddled the Rustic and the Madawaska Stream 8 more times than normal. So he said to me the other day, he says, I think I'm getting a little old for this. But kids really responded to it. We had to go with a little bit less number of kids. Both programs for the kayak in the first 2 weeks were very well attended. Parents were receptive of dropping the kids off and picking them up at different locations. So that worked out well. He's planning on, this week we're doing golfing at the golf course, which we normally don't. We already have another gentleman that runs that, but weren't going to do it this year, so we picked it up. The camping sessions are not going to happen, so those are the ones that he really thought really hard and changed up, and utilizing a lot of our local businesses in the area. We're going to do some horseback riding. We're going to be doing some mini putt golf as well. We're also going to be doing laser tag. So it's working. Parents are really receptive to it so far. Kids have been really receptive as well. The core sports, which typically is baseball, tennis, and track and field, they started last Monday. So they started on the 22nd of June. Typical start date as normal, and actually offering more sessions than normal. Again, trying to minimize the amount of kids that are there in a big group setting, so we're utilizing more times. And most of the sessions are very well attended. We've had a few on the early morning time frames that have not been the best attended. Social distancing is being observed. They're cleaning their hands and they're sanitizing. So our programs, we've actually offering more programs than normal. So we are up and running. It's working. The building is open. Again, it's been beautiful outside, so people are using, they're walking outside. They're really not utilizing the building. There's been some basketball being played, and they've been playing not one-on-one, but they're just skills and stuff. We're really trying to minimize the amount of heavy play that they're doing, especially when you play basketball. You're not going to be able to play without being 6 feet apart. And we've had a few comments with some walkers. They're saying, well, you know what? They really need to be socially distancing. So we've got to monitor that a little bit more. We've removed all the softs in the building, so there's no more soft chairs. All the rugs are gone for now. So it's less cleaning for us. The more that we could make it easier for staff to keep the building open and easier to disinfect was a lot better, and so it's working. This is a great time right now to figure out what we're going to do in the fall with soccer and then obviously we know basketball's coming around the corner. So it's working. We're Dutch Soccer Academy is up right now. They're doing their week-long soccer camp down on Susie Ball Field off of Sincock Street, and that's his own program. We've got all of his permitting, all of his plans for the COVID-19, keeping everybody clean and safe, and got no issues. He's been around the state all year long, so he's doing pretty good. So again, the building is open. Our programs are going. There's no community play with outside communities because Governor Mills really wanted to stem that right there. So most of the time, the rec departments will play baseball against Ashland and Easton and Fort Kent and Holton. None of that this year. And there's a lot of the outlying rec departments that are not doing a thing this summer. There's only five departments in the county that are offering programs. A lot of the other ones are not. So kind of unfortunate. We felt that we needed to run our programs or do what we can to get the kids out and active and keep it going. So we are going.
I'm very pleased over the last 2 weeks of the progression that I've seen our Caribou Parks and Rec Department make. So often you run into situations where, well, we can't do it. And so often I love to be in situations when you're around a group of people that says, we'll be able to make this work. And my hat's off to you and the crew. Another issue I wanted to ask you about, maybe this isn't under your purview now, I'm a little shaky on the chain of authority here. How about Thursday on Sweden Street?
Right now, that's a no-go up until we're going to see what she's going to come up with next week. She's got another briefing, I think, the second week of July. No gatherings larger than 50 right now, right? 100, excuse me. And we all know that we're gonna break that crowd real quick. There's still some hope, possibly in August, that we're going to be able to do some. And I know the last department head meeting that we had, Manager Marker, and I'm talking to him from behind right now, and he had said, well, we can have them all on all 4 Thursdays in August. And if that's be the wishes and we can do it, we'll try our darndest to be able to do it.
I see other communities starting to ask bands to show up
Yeah.
and play festivals and doing things, and it's
Yeah.
all outdoor. And I see no one of 7, Gary.
Oh, I understand.
I'm not
I
speaking
understand.
of authority, and everything can change next week if there's an outbreak. I get it.
Yep.
But to start planning to do things in August
Yep.
with Thursday on Sweden Street, I don't see, from my point of view, I don't see anything wrong with it. People that are a little cautious
Stay home.
don't have to come.
And that's what we've been telling people, that they've been a little nervous of coming in. I said, well, we've done what we can. If you don't feel comfortable, we'll keep walking on the sidewalks or, stay home. We don't know when this is going to go away, so we're doing what we can. And one of the comments that we had from a parent the other day said, I really like this one-on-one learning. We've got 4 baseball staff, and they're taking the kids. One's doing one session, another one. So there's not a lot of idle time where there would be before, where they're all out in the infield waiting for the ball to be hit to them. There's more. They're learning more. So I think we're gonna change the way we do a lot of things here, probably forever. But Matt Bouchard's receptive to the changes, and Neil's been wonderful with the reception to the changes with his program, because his is the one that took the biggest changes, and he's really ran with it, and everybody's happy, everybody's doing a good job.
Well, I just think we have to learn to live with this.
Yep, definitely.
And I see great potential in having a wiffle ball intramural season starting sometime in August with the students of RSU 39. Now, you want to make it badminton, horseshoes, do it, but I guess I'm making my point. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying this is what I would like to see.
Neil told me this morning, last thing, Country Club, they've garnered, I think, 25 new youth memberships this year. So I think kids are going to do different things. They're going to try different sports, and and golf is a lifelong sport. I mean, it's the most humbling activity that you can possibly do.
It's not. You're lying, Gary.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of good things to come out of this, as long as everybody stays healthy and safe.
My grandson was one that got a membership there.
Yep.
And he's decided to go play golf this year and take it up seriously.
This might be
Right.
the reason why we get our golf team back.
Yeah.
Who knows? Because the increase in the players. So
I've up until about a month ago, I thought we could all come out of this together. And over the last month, and I don't mean to be doom and gloom type guy, but there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers on this whole deal.
oh yeah.
Some businesses are going to do just fine. Some business will even do better.
Yep.
Some businesses are going to take it on the chin real hard.
Yep.
And I guess the goal, and we can't help that. It's not our goal, but the goal would be is to focus on the winners and head down that road.
Yep.
And go after the things that you can do.
Yep. Well, one of the things that Neil really thought about with his program was the fact that he couldn't go out and travel. Parents were not going to bring their child all the way to Madawaska Lake for a 3-hour canoe session or a kayaking session. So he kept it in town. So we're visiting places that he hasn't visited in a while. And like I said, 4 businesses that he's gonna go to in the community. So that's big. And I think this is going to be probably something that we're going to do from now on. So.
Any other comments or questions for Gary? Tom?
While we were talking, I was thinking, when Governor Mills said we can't have, like us playing Ashland, is there any way we could do like a kind of an all-stars thing where we do like a home run derby or something with all the towns around? Again, you and I bad ideas against each other all the time.
Yeah, the other issue is that there's not a lot of activity right now with the other recs.
And that's what you said.
So we're trying to do everything that we can for our kids, and we have taken some kids. Because we always take Woodland and Connor, New Sweden. They're participating, but I think some parents are being a little leery and they're keeping them home, which is totally up to them. But I think we could do something within the kids from the community. I know Caribou Little League, they're not having a season this year, but they're doing a skills 2 nights a week. They're doing a skills thing, and their numbers are getting good, and the kids are actually enjoying it. They're getting a lot out of it. So there's some things going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you're doing a great job of making the
thank
best
you.
out of a horrible situation that we're all in.
Trying.
Yeah. Good
Yep.
job, Gary.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Any other discussion by council members? Any subjects they want to bring up tonight?
Are we done?
Well, we're on number 10. You.
Dennis, you still there?
I see him.
Dennis, can you hear Hugh?
I can't hear him. I can hear you and someone standing straight where Gary was. For some reason I can't.
Oh, okay. Is my mic's on? No?
I don't know.
So we just wanted to bring up the email from MMA regarding dropping insurance coverage for the fire station.
Mark, you'll have to repeat that.
You wanted to bring up the letter that we received from MMA about the dropping of the insurance of our fire station. Did I say that right?
Yeah. So what I'll do, I got some questions here. I'll email them to him.
Okay.
How's that sound?
We're going to email you some questions. And we'll have it for the next council meeting. So is Hugh's mic going out on everybody else? I mean, how's this working?
He's hearing it straight through the laptop. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, it's Dennis that can't hear. Oh, okay. Got it.
It's just the feed. you're talking through the computer, that makes it hard through the Zoom process, but it's working fine through YouTube, channel 13.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the letter we got last Friday indicated that unless we move forward with the fire station project, they were gonna drop the fire station insurance. I've already asked Carl to look into some options. Certainly, we can pick that up. But yes, please send me any questions that you have. I'll try to get answers.
Dennis, is Carl also looking, he's not going out just for the fire station, he's taking the whole insurance package out, isn't he? Are we sending that out, RFQ?
At this point, we were just doing the fire station, but I know there are some local insurance companies that would like to see all of the states go out to an RFQ at some point.
I think that's probably the smarter way to handle getting a price just on one building versus the total package. Thanks.
Maybe we get some questions. Maybe we could have a special meeting on this one, because I also have questions about, how about if we self-insure ourselves? We have $3 million. It's not making any interest. Now, I don't know if we're allowed to do that. I don't understand the ramifications of it, but maybe this is something. I just find it hard to believe that 5 days before the policy lapses, they're going to tell us that they're not going to cover our insurance. Seems like to me they ought to give you a 30 or 40 or 90-day notice or something. I mean, everything was all right last winter. What happened to this? Why now all of a sudden? So, but until we get the communications between all the council members and you figured out here, we'll wait until you get back. So, okay. Any other discussions that want to be brought up? Tommy?
Dennis, we got your email about the marathon not happening this year, correct? Earth to Dennis. Come in, Dennis.
Here.
No, I
It's
gotta
not through
like
the
scooch over here. No, it's not through that. It's through his laptop. Dennis, can you hear me?
Oh, I get it now.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes,
The marathon, we all got an email saying it wasn't happening this year, correct?
based on everything that we're dealing with, and the impacts we think it would have for the reputation of the marathon, and the lack of participants that we signed up so far this year, we would recommend to the council that we not hold it this year, but we will pick it back up again next year.
So, are we gonna take the $38,687.73 and roll it over to next year? Because that's in the negative right now.
The Marathon Reserve Fund, as you pointed out, has run a negative balance really since the first year, since Full Christina picked it up. And we have been trying to climb out of that hole each year. Part of that has been the marathon organizer that we hired, the type of equipment that was being used, and each year we've been trying to refine that process and getting it down to reduce the outlay that we have and also increase the revenue. Larry can maybe speak to some of that, while he's assuming he's still in the room.
Well, that's kind of Christina's deal, isn't that?
Christina, it's a tag team thing. Gary does a lot of the logistics and the heavy work that's involved in all of those meetings. And Christina does do a lot of the sponsorships, reaching out, getting sponsors, trying to coordinate on the prizes and all of those things. And like I said, we've recognized that the race organizer that had been used in years past, those are some things that as a staff, we've got to and reduce their time, reduce their costs to on that. We have been coming out of that hole a little bit for the past couple of years, but it's definitely a cost that we're going to have to you know, we continue to make the racing more successful, more popular. We look at the entry fees a little bit, we increase those, and as numbers continue to climb, we're back up to flat grade. Or we look at something else, and
No flag grade.
and we have a deficit in the reserve fund we need to fill in with TIF funds. The race was sponsored using TIF funds. Some of those economic development funds as a way to promote the city and get more visitors and tourists into the area. So those TIF funds is what we need to use to fill that void.
Okay.
Any other? Hugh?
Well, we got Gary here. Do you want him to talk about the splash pad?
No.
Okay.
I should give him heads up
Okay.
before
We can't do anything.
You got
until the
something on
school
it? Come on up. Ask me, because Gary.
Don't just sit around my office, you know.
I didn't say that.
So the park is moving along quite nicely.
Gary, can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
The whole thing is based on the fact that I thought that thing was supposed to be up and running this summer.
Nope.
I was never told that.
Nope.
It wasn't going to be running in July of this year.
Because of that section of the park is still not ours. They have not handed that section of the park to us.
Fair enough.
I've asked the question last week because I was asked to ask the question, and the answer came back pretty well within 3 seconds. No.
Wasn't this thing supposed to be done
Last
a
September?
year and a half ago?
Last September. Yep.
It just never seems to be getting done. I don't know. And see, I just come at it from a simple point of view. What has creating a new park across the street from the construction site have to do with the construction site? That park is ours. That park doesn't belong to the RSU, does it?
At this moment, it does. Because that is part of this whole school project. So it's into the same scope. Thank you. So until they punch it out and until they sign it over to the city, I can't ask, I can't go do anything. I have a hard time to ask for any changes because there are some changes that we've asked and implemented, and it's taken a long time to get those changes done. They're going to be better for us in the meantime, in the long run. But where the splash park is located, that's still under the scope of this project, and they will not release it until the project is signed off and given to us.
So it can't be used this summer.
I'm hoping, because right now, I keep in touch with a lot of the contractors. Soderbergh's pretty much done his part. Now they've got to straighten out a few light poles, which would be Underwood, and they got to fence the area. And that's, I think, Jarvis Fence got the bid on that. So not sure when they're gonna start. The question that I asked last week was, when do you think you're going to possibly sign it over to us? Within 3 weeks, within a month, within 2 months? And they didn't come out with an answer. I asked them, I said, I'd have a meeting Monday night. I'd like to have somewhat of an answer for my council, and so I can inform them. But I didn't get anything today in an email form or a call. So I'm assuming that within the next month and a half, I think it's going to become ours. I hope.
And before I turn it over to the rest of the council, just out of curiosity, when you say get permission, from who? Who do you talk to that's going to put their name and say, yeah, go ahead and go do it?
Nobody will right now.
Who will eventually do it? The general contractor?
Yeah.
Stantec?
No. Bowman. They're going to walk the park with us, punch it out, make sure that we approve of it with the school department, and then they're going to hand it over to us. That project has been the school project from the get-go.
Fair enough. I misunderstood it then.
Any changes, any additions or deletions of cost, all that money goes back to the school because it's a school project.
Now, they're gonna fence in right where National Guard is, all the way around the ball field and all the way up by docks, correct?
They're gonna, yes, that
So
side's gonna be fenced.
They couldn't turn over part of that park. It's gotta be in its entirety
Correct.
in order for it to be stand.
Right now, somebody drove on the sidewalk last week with a pickup
No.
and indented the tar a little bit. Well, it's not, nobody knows who did it. It wasn't any of my staff. We don't know who did it. That falls under the guise of Soderberg as the general contractor for the ground. Until that, so that's why it's fenced off right now. The entrances are fenced off. They're not allowing anybody to drive in there.
Soderberg has to go in there and fix
They're going to have to fix it because it's his, that's his part of his project. So after I asked the question, can we utilize this little area? They said no. And I knew the answer.
But that's my biggest problem with this whole deal, and it has been my biggest problem with Bowman since day one. Guess who's got to deal with it, folks? Us.
So
Not Bowman, not anybody else. And I've held my tongue pretty gosh darn tight. But that's,
understood.
you know, that's not right. Dennis, I hope you're hearing me on this. You know.
But to get back to Councillor Kirkpatrick's question about the splash pad, I'm working with BRSA right now to get an engineer design for me because when I go out to bid for a contractor to build it, I don't want to be the general, and I don't want to have to get the plumbing contractor, the electrical contractor. I don't want to have to do that. So we're getting plans. I just read them today, my preliminary plans. They look good. We're really trying to keep it as inexpensive as we possibly can. It's a 10 to 12 week window for the equipment if I order it now. We do have the funds to order it. I want to get my bid out so I know what the cost of the project's going to be. But I would love to be able to order the equipment now so that it's actually on its way. So I still think we're going to be able to break ground in end of August. The minute that park gets signed over to us, I'm hoping that we can start turning some ground over. And it's not going to take long to build. So I'd like to be able to place the order. It's a significant amount of money. Just the equipment installation, just the equipment itself is $126,000 just for the equipment. So I'd like to place that order. That way there I can get the ball rolling and get it here. So when we start moving along, we can start going.
But just so everybody in the community is clear on this, you have most of that money that was donated and in reserves, correct?
I've got I've got enough money to go out and purchase the units right now. But I know we were told to not spend too much money, and that's quite a bit of money right there. So and that's why I'm hoping to get my bids back so I can put it out to bid to the local contractors and get some good prices. It's late because everybody's working, and I understand that, but I think there's a few smaller companies that would probably jump on board. So, but that's the plan. I'm hoping to, if the weather holds, I'm hoping to have something, above ground before snow flies this year and be able to turn it on come early next year. That's the plan. But I'm held hostage right now with the park.
Fair enough.
That was supposed to be done last September.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Gary. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, don't worry about that.
Any other discussion from any other council members? Hearing none, we'll go on to item number 11, City Manager's Report. Dennis.
Councilors, tonight, the main thing I just wanted to focus on was the Blight Toolkit report that the Blight Commission's been working on since the first part of the year. A copy of that form is in place, or was in the packet. There's also hard copies that we received. We sent it out to the members of the Blight Commission. So far, the comments that we've received back have been very positive, and we would like to, I guess, treat this as your first opportunity to look at it, and happy to bring that back another time for the formal approval. And I know that there might be some minor things to add here and there as maybe your comments come out. But we do expect that this document is not going to be a static document, one-time thing. There's already identified that there are multiple tools that the city could be using, or defining how we are using with regards to blight in the community. And so as we start to refine our processes and we look at implementing some tools, then we can also update our matrix, our blight tool matrix and the processes we have, and continue to improve what we've got. We identified with Henry Thompson as our, of course, our chief building official and our assessor. Identified several things we could do from the building side, building code side, the building enforcement, police department, many different angles, even from our housing department. And looking at how we address blight in the community and around the community. So I know that land banking is something that the council really wants to is talking about. Mr. Paul Camping sent me an email late this afternoon indicating that there's even more updated information on land banking that we can tap into that is not referenced in the report right now. So we know that as a practice, it's going to continue to evolve, and we certainly can do it better in what we're doing with blight. But certainly take it, if you will, tonight and reading it, let us know what your comments are on it. And happy to bring it back another night for a formal approval.
Thank you, Dennis. It was a subject that I brought up, and the council has decided the importance of blight also. Almost 2 years ago, it got started. And we have here, like Dennis says, the first draft of a pretty good document, I think. Covers a lot of it. I am interested in the portion of land banking. It's all important. I would encourage any citizens of Caribou that are interested in dealing with the issue of blight, whether it be in their community or their city, to stop by and get a copy of this report and read it, realizing it is, how do we say it, like a first draft. In the process, we have received over the I'm going to just pick it up. 6 months ago, a letter from Big. Big is an investment group in Caribou. Business investment group is the analogy. And they had a great interest in participating in some way, and talked to John Swanberg over the weekend, who is president or chairman of Big. And I showed him the part about land banking. I would encourage any counselors over the next 2 weeks, if you know of any citizens that would like to be on the land bank group, submit their name to me. We're going to form a group. We got to go through the details of how you join Big, how you appoint the members, because it has, if I'm understanding it right, and we'll have clarification on it, it has to be separate identity from the council as far as the actual running of it. We'll have permission to appoint the committee members. So keep names in mind of any citizens that you know of that might be interested in this. We've had, I'm just going to guess, 15, 16 different people that have come together at one point or another over the last year and a half to put together this, which has led to this document and even more. So the more the merrier. Any comments or questions from the council?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Very nice. Anything else on the manager's report, Dennis?
I think for tonight, it would be more prudent for us to move into our executive sessions, since we have our attorney waiting in the rear to get involved with those discussions, and maybe better for the time to move forward with those. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Then I'll wait on my questions until the next council meeting. Reports by staff and appointed officials. This is item number 12 on the agenda.
I'm going to step up to the podium. I just want to remind people that there's still time to get an absentee ballot for the July 14th election. I have some of your absentee ballots right now from some counselors. Things will be different at the election. Remember, in July, I'm running a state election. And so I will be following procedures and guidance that have been given and directed. From counting the number of people going in to the polls through the building to where petitioners will be stationed and where candidates can be. For instance, candidates will be outside the building, not inside the building, as they have in the past been in the lobby. Your election staff may look like they should be in a doctor's office because we have masks and face shields. There are gloves who want them and hand sanitizer. The number of booths, I'm required to have a certain number of booths, and I have over the years been acquiring the pie-shaped kiosk-type booths, and they have 4 balloting stations. I have been guidance by the state that only one of the 4 may be used at any one time. The old Davison booths, those are the ones that are the metal booths that we've had with the curtains. I've been taking the curtains down for the last few years because people have commented that, the dirty, it touches them. Well, we're not to use any curtains, not a problem here in Caribou, but we can only use every other booth when we use the Davis booths. It will be that I will have someone counting people going in, probably a person counting going out of the building. I will probably have someone that, not going to have them do it for 12 hours, but cleaning booths and other surfaces. It's a discussion that Gary and I have talked about as to how frequently the bathrooms are cleaned at the rec. These are all things that we're looking at. So we still encouraging people to do absentees, and they're available up into and including election day. But if you want one election day, you will have to come to the polls because the clerk's office, the 3 of us, will be up there. And Danielle has the numbers that she can share as to how many absentee requests have gone out.
We have had, in just Caribou, 514 absentee requests. We are doing a second mailing due to the RSU election. We have about 100 more of those to put out in the mail. And we have issued 308. So we've done a huge amount right now, and it's gaining every day. So it's definitely a good thing right now.
Thank you very much. Any other reports? Okay. Thank you. Item number 13, to go into executive session. Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining status update 405.6.d.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Tom, seconded by Joan to go into executive session. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great, safe evening.